All right. So if IT isn't dead, what and some things from the past will continue on. What is one thing we should be looking at? Either a technology or a trend that, if we keep track of this one indicator, this one trend, we're going to sort of know what's going on. What is that key indicator out there that really makes sense? Dana, you have a sense of that?
Well, it's not to say that the IT business isn't changing, and it's going through a maturation process. Not too different from what was written about years ago with the switch being thrown, comparing it to railroads, comparing it to electric utilities and energy. And clearly the days of a software company with a lock-in platform making 65 to 85% margins year in and year out is probably over.
Right.
But, many businesses do quite well with an 8 to 10% margin, and software companies and platform companies and legacy IT vendors are going to be heading in that direction. It's not to say it's a bad business, but it's maturing. So there are always going to be new startups that will be able to come in and have a high margin and capture a market share, an addressable market, until someone comes in and competes with them, and then their margins go down, and it's cyclical. It goes over and over. But maybe there's some things that are changing, and that's the idea of the high-margin lock-in legacy vendor.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're seeing a little less lock-in than we used to, and this has been ongoing for a long time. That's not to say it's a bad thing. There's more choice. The thing that makes hybrid cloud so appealing is that people have choice. If I have a software-defined data center that's very efficient, if I have automation and orchestration that allows me to create applications quickly and rapidly put them into production, if I can then iterate on those apps rapidly, well, that's a good system. I might say, well, let's look at the cost-benefit analysis of having it on-prem, having it in a managed service environment, or in a public cloud, or all three. That's kind of where we're going. And when you have that kind of choice, that's going to drive down margins further, because not only will you be competing IT vendor against comparable IT vendor, but you'll be competing IT vendor against cloud provider, against service managed provider. That's a good thing. This is all good news for the user, for the enterprise. IT isn't dead. IT is going to have a much better deal, and the vendors are going to have to become like most other industrial organizations, striving to hold on to their market share and competing at low margins.
Greg, your sense of a key indicator? What do you really keep? Like, is it containers? Is it the role of developers? What do you really keep an eye on?
Well, I guess from a very Hitachi specific perspective, right? We're looking at the Internet of Things that matter, and you have
not just the Internet of Things, but the Internet of Things that matter.
I'm stealing that. I just made a note.
That's my next clickbait headline, by the way. The Internet of Things that matter. Okay.
Well, it's important. It's one of the ways that we talk about how businesses and IT departments are transforming. It's one of the ways that Hitachi is transforming, right? And we realized the landscape and the requirements for businesses, smart cities, and other things is changing very quickly. And we're looking at where the IT investments are going, and they're really going into tools that help companies run more efficiently, that help cities run more efficiently, that help cities produce public safety more efficiently and more accurately. So the landscape for us is a little bit broader than it might be for a lot of traditional infrastructure-based companies. And I know Cisco's going through the same transformation as well, and I'm sure Scott can speak to this. And I think that's where the smart IT vendors are going, and they're not just heads down looking at this as an infrastructure-centric world. It's much broader than that.
Scott, what do you track as you sort of try to keep on what's going on? What is there a key indicator or a key technology that really matters to you?
I mentioned it before in passing, and I don't think people give enough credit to the impact machine learning is going to have on just everything that we do. And I'm seeing it more and more. We've had customers kind of come through this, hey, we're using our private cloud for virtual machines and test beds, and we're using our public cloud for this, and now we've got big data going, and big data is great, rah, rah, big data, right? That big data becomes useful when you do something with it. Just collecting it and being able to analyze it doesn't really do anything. You need data scientists, you need other things. Well, guess what? Now you've got lots of horsepower and lots of data coming together on demand to do really interesting things around machine learning. And so, IoT, again, great. Got billions of sensors, billions of data collectors that are going into these centralized and decentralized places. of storage and compute. But then what do you do with it, right? It's not really truly valuable until you can make decisions. Smart cities, right? Do I pick up the trash in this neighborhood today, or do I wait till next week? How are the traffic signals going? How are the trains? How's the power usage, right? All the things we think about when we think smart cities. And Hitachi, Cisco, there's a lot of folks playing in that space around the world. But to me, it's when I talk to a customer who is really talking about at that next level already, what are we going to do with the data? That's when I know that like the light bulb has gone off for them as a business. It's not just about collecting it and storing it and running reports, but how are we in truly real time? We see this a lot in retail. We see this a lot in banking today. How are we going to make real-time decisions using our data? And things like machine learning are truly going to transform that. So that's the conversation for me. That's like, aha, I've got a customer here that is really going to do something interesting.
You know, it's interesting about the machine learning that I think about. One of the real values of big data is being able, a set of humans being able to glean through all this data. But obviously, machine learning is this continuous input into the system, and the system itself begins to auto-correct, which can be extremely powerful. Are you saying that almost, from what you're talking to people, they're more excited about that, the system itself auto-correcting, more than even like individuals sitting down and gleaning through the data and coming up with fancy pie charts that tell them where to go, where to sell? Yeah,
the best example of machine learning for people that are trying to wrap their heads around it, you can Google Super Mario Brothers machine learning. And there's a guy that wrote a little library to beat Super Mario Brothers, right? And he gave it essentially no inputs other than you can jump and you can move forward and you can move backwards and like that's it, right? Here are the commands, figure it out. And like over, I don't know how many tens of thousands of iterations of itself trying to play this game, it learned. It's not artificial intelligence, it's machine learning. And it's just a really good, here in 5 minutes, like you get this super kind of deep introduction to how machines actually can learn without it being artificial intelligence, which is the next step with Google's new server that's 100 million times faster than anything out there. What could you do with that, right? But yeah, you got all this data coming in, and data scientists are amazing. They're also in high demand and hard to find, and are limited by their own scope of view of the world, right? So as you got lots of data, you got lots of compute. What could you do with it? That's where I think we're going to see a surge in machine learning, and a surge as the scale of the data we collect and are able to analyze grows.
James,
that's when it goes crazy.
I would just add, this goes back to the evolving role of the CIO and how they take advantage of these tools, and they're able to bring some business intelligence back to the business and creating real business value. And I think that's the mindset for the new CIO.
It used to be show me what happened last quarter. Now it's going to be show me what's going to happen next quarter, right? Yeah. And that's real-time data. If I'm a retail company, that's real-time data from beacons and connected analytics in the stores, and all of these things, and actual purchases, and what's in my shopping cart, and what's happening on Facebook, and you're able to predict what's going to happen. That type of data is really hard to do if you don't have all the pieces we've, as an industry, been putting together over the last 5 or 10 years. All the technologies, all the innovation, that's going to enable what will happen.
Oh, okay, if we're thinking about machine learning, which gets me out of artificial intelligence, and by the way, I am a robot. I'm actually programmed of an avatar.
I totally believe that, James, actually.
It's pretty convincing, I think. And as a side tangent, I think there's this step-by-step movement towards artificial intelligence, which true AI is really elusive, but the percentage-wise, 49%, 50%, 60%, we're going to keep gaining on, and sometimes it'll be enough without they need to go to true intelligence.